In this video, we're going to be talking about short cites, string cites, and signals. So, in the last video, we learned how to cite a case, and you'll recall that we start with the case name, comma, and the case name is always italicized. We then cite the reporter, followed by a pin cite, and then we have a set of parentheses with a year, or excuse me, and in that parentheses we indicate the court and the year. And returning back to our example, we were citing the Washington Supreme Court case of State v. Blake. That was cited as State v. Blake, italicized, comma, 481 Pacific, 3rd series, starts on page 521, comma, a pin cite to page 525, parenthesis, Washington for the Washington Supreme Court, and then the year was 2021. So to do a short cite, so in your legal writing, after you have done the full cite for a case, then subsequent citations to that same case should be in a shortened form. Okay? And there's two types of shortened forms. We're going to talk about both of them. But for right now, a shortened form for a case, you would either take the first name of the case, or in the event that you have a case that involves a public official or a government entity like state, you would take the second name. In this case, we're going to take the second name, and the reason that we don't use state is because we would have too many cases named state, and we don't want to do that. So we get rid of one name so that we're just having to deal with the other name. And then we get rid, or rather replace, the first page of the cite, and we just put instead the word at, and then we get rid of the parenthetical court and year. So an abridged form of State v. Blake would look like Blake, italicized, comma, 481 Pacific, 3rd series, at 525, our pin cite, and then period. So this is what a shortened form looks like. Notice that we only have one of the parties in the case, and in this case we did the defendant Blake. In most cases, you want to cite the first name that appears in the case name. But in this case, since the first name was a government entity, being the state, we don't want to we would just have, if we only cited the first name, we would just have a bunch of cases that are called state. We don't want to do that, so instead we take the name Blake. And then we still keep the reporter volume number, the reporter name, but instead of doing the first page of the reporter, we just say at, and then 525. And you can put this into Lexis or Westlaw, and it will take you to this page of the decision. Now, you will be tempted at some point to write a short cite like this. Blake, actually, I'm going to do it in another color. All right, so you will be tempted to cite a case like this. Blake at 525. At 525. This is wrong, so don't do that. Okay? If you're doing a short cite, you have the reporter volume and the reporter name, and you just toss in the at and then the pin cite. If you don't need the pin cite, then you can also write it without one. It would just look like Blake 481 P3D and 521 period. So this is what it would look like without the pin cite. And again, the 521 is the first page of the decision. So if you were just citing it generally or needed to just refer to the existence of this case, you could cite it like that. All right. Next, we will talk about the other option that you have for a short cite, and this one is quite easy. It's just id, period. Okay, and you can use id if you are citing to a case that you just cited. Okay, so if I just cited Blake and then I need to drop another citation, then I can do id, and id just means refer back to the case that I just cited. You can also uh, do id with a pin cite just by saying id at 525. Okay. If you don't put the pin cite, then the id will just refer back to whatever the pin cite was on your last citation. So if you want to cite to a new page, just drop id at. Id is always italicized, and it will be capitalized as the beginning of a sentence, provided that you've just ended your sentence. It is also possible to integrate id into the sentence without having its own citation sentence. And if you do that, then it would be in lowercase. Okay, so we're going to move on to signals. And signals go in front of a citation. I'll say before a citation, and they indicate the degree of support that the cited authority provides to your claim. Hopefully that will make more sense as we talk more about it. So there's two types of signals. There's signals that support your claim, or I should say signals that indicate that the authority supports your claim, and then there are signals that indicate that the authority contradicts the claim. All right, so the first signal is an easy one, and it is just no signal. So if you drop a citation with no signal, that indicates direct support for your proposition. So you write a sentence, you drop a citation to an authority, the reader will expect that that authority should directly support your claim. After the no signal, you can do a signal for EG. e.g. indicates that the authority provides an example of the assertion that you just made in your writing. So the reader would expect to see that the authority provides an example of what you just said. The next one is something that I have never used, but it's accord. And my understanding of accord is that if your sentence is sort of directly referring to one authority, but you want to note that there are other authorities that support the same proposition that are in agreement with that authority that you're mentioning, then you use accord. So I guess I'll just write additional support. I have never used accord. I highly doubt that there are many circumstances where you really need to use it, but additional support. Whatever, it's there. Uh, Next, and these are the more important, so there's C, C, C also, C for example, and then C generally. And using the C signal, that indicates indirect support. And so the classic example of when you would use a C signal is, for instance, if you had a statute that said the list of approved colors on the United States flag are red, white, and blue. You might drop a sentence that says yellow is not an approved color for the flag. And when you cite to this statute, it says that the approved colors are red, white, and blue. It doesn't specifically say, but not yellow. However, you can make the inference that since red, white, and blue are mentioned, but yellow is not, that yellow is not an approved color for the flag. And so in that case, you could drop the C for look at this statute, you'll see that yellow is not on the approved list of colors. And then the last signal is CF. This stands for compare, and it's used when it's very similar to C, and you use it when you're really just trying to make an analogy. Um, and in this instance, it's not even necessarily indirect support. It's just you're analogizing a situation. So you say, uh, uh, compare this situation to that situation. Let's move on to the signals that indicate contradiction. So contra is sort of the contradictory form of no signal, so that indicates direct contradiction. I've rarely used the contra signal. You also have but C, and this one I use more often. So again, that signals indirect contradiction. And but C is a really good one because we have the lawyer has an ethical obligation to disclose adverse authorities. So if there's an authority that's arguably adverse to a point that you're making, sometimes you just throw in a but C, cite the case, and then you have met your ethical obligations to disclose that case to the court. There is also the but CF. Again, I've never used this one, but it's sort of the opposite of the compare. If you want to cite a case that by analogy contradicts what you're claiming, then you can use but C. There are some odd ones out there too. So there is you can also do something which is like called making like a comparison signal. So you can say compare case 1 with case 2. That is sort of not really supporting or contradicting a claim. It's just pointing out some interesting comparison. Again, I very seldom used this. It's kind of an unusual circumstance where you would. So let's talk about string citations. Okay, so for a string citation, all right, so let's say that you are writing along, you're making a claim here, you end on a period, and then you need a citation. And let's say in this instance you want to cite several cases, okay? So you might start with case 1, and then once you've cited case 1, you do a semicolon. And then let's say that the second case that you want to cite is an example. So you might throw in the EG signal, example case 2, and then you have another semicolon, and uh, this a third case has only an inferential. An inferential only provides inferential support, so you say C case 3. And then just for fun, we'll also throw in a CF for compare case 4. And then once you are done with all of the authorities that support the claim, you drop a period. Okay? And the order of these cases is important in that whatever signal you're using, you want to start with the case that provides the most support for the claim, or the most direct support, I should say. So since we have no signal here, no signal means that this case goes first. EG is slightly less direct than no signal, so it goes next, and then you have C after that, and then CF at the end. Okay? You could also, in theory, have, for instance, case 1, semicolon, case 2, semicolon, and then let's throw in C also, case 3. So a string citation could look like this, where you have no signal here. I should draw this. Okay, so that now you can see there's no signal. So no signal goes first, and we have two cases with no signal. That's how we would illustrate that. So no signal, case 1 and case 2. That means that both case 1 and case 2 provide direct support. Direct support. And then C also indicates that case 3 is indirect. Indirect support. There are rules for how to organize these cases that are within a certain signal. I don't think that those rules are really worthwhile to learn, but if you want to learn those, you are certainly welcome to. Okay, so let me drop down here. So you'll notice that in that example, we only had cases that were supporting our claim. Let's talk about how you would include cases that contradict the claim. So let's say I'm going to have my sentence here. I'm going to do a no signal case 1, and then C also case 2. And then that's all of the cases that I have in support of the claim. I drop a period, and then I move on to cases that contradict the claim. So I'll throw in a signal contra, case 3, and then, oops, and then but C case 4. Okay, so this is how you would do it. And just as how the supportive cases are organized from the most direct support to the least direct support, when you get into the oppositional side of the citation, you start with the cases that go for the most direct contradiction to the least direct contradiction. Now, just as a writing tip, I would say avoid string citations. There should be a pretty good reason if you're going to be using a string citation, as in there is something more than just that you're citing a bunch of cases that all stand for the same thing. If instead of using string citations, it's generally better to just find the case that has the best authority for what you're trying to say, and consider the factors of how recent it is, and then whether it was a Supreme Court versus appellate court decision. Obviously, a Supreme Court decision is more authoritative, and a more recent decision is more authoritative. So just consider, which authority you have is the most important to cite